Hi there, Phil Pendlebury here, and I'm going to take you through another short cue. This one's called Watching the Rye. It was originally written on an acoustic guitar and it features some accompaniment from Spitfire's Albion 1 and some piano. So let's play the cue and then we'll go into it. Okay, hope you like that. It's just a little melody and I'm just going to go through how it was put together. So this one shouldn't take long. So let's start. I wrote this when I was very young and it was written on a 12-string guitar, and I don't currently have a 12-string. I've got my Variax, which does a good impression of a 12-string, but I just decided to record the guitar with a normal acoustic setting on the Variax, and so let's just play a little bit of the intro of the guitar. So you can see they're very simple, and the melody is actually included in the guitar part. It's something that, you know, we do once in a while, us guitar players, when we're not being lazy. So as usual, I did 2 of those. And the third part there is the melody being played again in the center. So if you put them all together, and we'll have a look at the mixer. So we've got Guitar Rig 5 on each channel. One of my own patches, which is very clean, just a little bit of chorus. The melody, which is just played on its own. And you put them all together and you get this little ensemble. Yeah, so that's the guitars. Very simple. There's this basic preset from the Variax acoustic, and played with the fingers, not a plectrum. And then a little bit of processing, as I just showed you there. There's an SSLE on the group of guitars, and there's some Dreamverb, which actually is inserted on every channel. And the reason for that is that, as with a lot of the cues, they had to be delivered as stems, so I couldn't use send effects. Well, I could have, but it makes things much more complicated. So alright, let's move into some of the more interesting parts. As I said, this is only going to be short, so let's just get on with it. I wanted something to bring out that melody even more because it's so simple. I did write it when I was quite young, so in order to embellish it a little bit, I used Spitfire Albion 1, and I've got a high wood patch. So there you can see it's the legato patch high wood from Albion 1. If you don't already know this, then we'll just quickly go through it again. In order to use the legato, you have to have the notes overlapping. Now some of them do here and some of them don't, and as you can see they were all played manually. There's no quantizing involved in this. So these little notes here were obviously legatoed, and if we do it really obviously you'll be able to hear the difference. Let's just pull these across and have a quick listen. Which sounds quite nice, but I elected to just leave them as I played them in this particular case, and you'll find that later on they do start to get more, as you can see here. Another thing to point out here once again, in case you haven't seen any of the other videos, you'll notice this bunch of grey stuff at the bottom here, which is modulation, and that's for the dynamics of these legato patches, and it's really nice. It makes a big difference if you play with the modulation wheel while you're actually playing the notes. So that's the high wood. That was basically to go along with the guitar melodies, so we get this. So then it was just basically a case of building up. I played the piano, and again I played that live, as you can see, and then I elected to drop out the piano through the intro so that it had a little bit more of an impact. So the pianos and the high wood and the guitars sound like this. So yeah, that's the piano, which is Addictive Keys. Great little plug-in. It's very, very low on processor power. It's really nice to just chuck in there if you want a nice simple piano sound. Then it's time to start with the string arrangement. So obviously I've got the bass strings, which is the next thing I did. And again you can see the dynamics in use, and you could hear it clearly there. It's also a legato patch, so you get those transitions, and there's a track delay. In fact, there's a track delay on most of the orchestral sounds just to bring them back into time. Mentioned this before, if you quantize a sound and it's got a very slow attack on it, then obviously it will usually end up playing behind the beat, so we put a track delay here to pull it back into time. And these aren't quantized, so I've already played most of them slightly ahead of the beat, but even so still requires a little bit of track delay to pull it in. So we've got low strings, which is a legato patch. We've got the low pad, which is just a normal. So there's the low strings. I've called it low pad, and I've tried to keep it quite realistic. And then we've got a high string. Again, played manually with a little bit of adjustment. It's another legato patch, so you'll notice that the notes are overlapping. So let's hear those string parts together. This is all Spitfire Albion still. So there you've got that beautiful sounding string ensemble from Spitfire Albion 1. That's basically all there was to it, just building it up, moving around some of the notes instead of playing the obvious notes. So then comes the brass. I wasn't even sure whether I was going to put any brass in this, but I'm actually really glad I did. So we've got, this is the highest brass part. And so on. It's a bit roughly played, I notice. It's funny how I always notice these things when I'm doing a walkthrough, but anyway, not to worry. There's a few overlaps there again for the legato, and that is basically playing the lead melody. So that and the high wood are pretty much similar. All we've got left is the low brass, which goes along with the low strings. So let's just hear the low brass and the low strings together. So you get the idea there. Again, it's not a direct copy, and I believe that, you know, playing these things through like that rather than just copying the part makes it much more interesting, especially with such a simple melody as this. And as I said, you can't really get much simpler. It doesn't do anything clever rhythmically. It's just a nice little melody. Finally, we've got the medium brass, and this is my favourite part, and this actually came last. Just the little intro there where it comes in was something I played, and I thought, ooh, that sounds nice. There's also a part in the crescendo where the chords change slightly because of this. So let's put that all together, you'll see what I mean. This is all the brass now. Almost picture them sitting there and playing and being conducted, which is marvellous. So finally, a little bit of percussion, just some cymbals, and that was the end really. All the output channels are up a group. I've got my dream verb, which is just the large symphony with a little bit of an adjustment. We've got the woodwind channel, which has got all the bottom end rolled off. The brass channel, little bits of a dip here and there and a bit of top end increased. And the strings, which again have that dip. Percussion, a little bit of a dip too, because it's only cymbals, so we didn't need much else. And that's the end of the track. And I particularly like the crescendo here because it didn't exist before. When I wrote this, it only came about when I did the track recently using Spitfire Albion 1. Hope you like it, and I'll play the end, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!